Ladies and gentlemen, damas y caballeros, leave it in the ring.
Paulie, what's up, brother? How you doing, man?
I'm good, man. How you doing?
Doing good. Hey, thanks for taking the time to talk to us here on Leaving the Ring. And let me ask you this, Paulie, because you've kind of taken this stance about cleaning up the sport. Because I've seen you do this not while you're commentating a fight. It's been off of that. But is there type of a restriction with Showtime where they don't want you to talk about certain things? And it just boils over where you have to say this on another platform?
I mean, you try to say things on the air, but I guess, Showtime kind of tries to stay away from the controversy. I can't go over there and kind of make it my own personal show, I can't go over there and become like, Showtime already has the Jim Rome show, where, kind of, the Jim Rome is the host and he kind of gives his opinions and he has guests on the show. Maybe in the long run I'll have a show like that too, where I can kind of spew my own opinions and give my own things on what's on my mind. But on the air, I mean, I can kind of say those things, but not to the degree I'd like to, because you really got to call the fight for the fans. You got to talk about the fight and the action in general, and really, you gotta be objective in a lot of ways. You kind of have to stay neutral out of a lot of those things, because Showtime doesn't want to be responsible for a lot of controversies, as don't a lot of these other networks. So a lot of times, I try to give the best that I can of myself, but you just try to stay away from the controversial things. I kind of try to keep the conversation in a more positive way. I try to generalize what's going on in a fight. I try to break down what's going on in the fight, and I try to break down what's going on in boxing in general. I try to discuss more of the positive things than anything else, and really, and not to say that I always do that, but I try to. I don't want people to switch the channel when they're watching me talk. I don't want people to switch the channel when I'm watching a fight. When they're watching a fight, and I'm bashing it. I don't want to be bashing a fight. There's always something positive you can take out of a fight, and I try to bring that out for people, so that people can look for those things themselves and enjoy it through my eyes.
Is it really controversial, though, in your opinion? I mean, this is something that is an obvious thing that's been in our sport that needs to be cleaned out. And let me ask you this. Don't you think that in the commentary that by even explaining what you've been talking about, what your rant is, which I don't think it's a rant. It's really a conversation that needs to be talked about. It's really something that needs to be awareness needs to happen here. Don't you think that by talking about it on the commentary, where you have these fans that are coming through, sitting down, it is the right time to talk about these certain situations in our sport to educate them? Because like you said, you got a lot of bloggers, you got a lot of these so-called media guys that they're not doing their job. And in my opinion, you're absolutely right. But I think a lot of these guys is because they're not even educated, because they don't know where to start from in order to kind of look into what is the problem in the sport.
Well, here's the thing. If you're not educated and you don't know where to start from, then you don't belong writing, you don't belong on press row, and you don't belong in any place like that. That's the problem starts there.
I agree.
Unless you have a college degree, you can't get most jobs in this world. I'm not saying you need a college degree to be a media member, but at the same time, you do need a certain amount of knowledge, aside from your desire to talk about the pound-for-pound list, or if you want to be in press row and you want to discuss certain things, because boxing is a lot deeper than people think, okay? And a lot of fanboys jump in there and just want to be fans. They just want to get a free media credential to big fights. And so they tiptoe across and try to, get these credentials. They create a website and try to get these credentials based on the fact that, listen, they masquerade as a writer or a reporter. And that's the thing. You got to kind of weed these people out, You got to kind of, try to dissect the real from the fake as far as the media, In boxing terms, these people are probably the club fighters of media writing, you know what I'm saying? And, there's the heavyweights, the world-class fighters of media writing are all amongst them. And sometimes it's hard to kind of decipher who's who and what's what, because everything is kind of mixed in, you know what I'm saying? I mean, in boxing, in the ring, you can eliminate a club fighter from a world-class fighter, you just put them in with each other, and you can understand who's on a certain level, A lot of times, in the media, the wannabe writers, they kind of masquerade as maybe something that they're not, and they kind of get mixed into the mix of the writers that are actually intelligent and may know what they're doing. It's kind of hard to decipher sometimes, because sometimes it's not a job about just the bloggers. Sometimes it's actually the guys who work for big-time websites who have no clue what they're doing and no clue what they're writing. So it's tough. It's difficult. I mean, if I get up there and I start ranting and I start trying to decipher, I might be talking for an hour. You can take shots at me. You can ask me questions. I'll have an answer every time. But really, to answer everybody's questions or to really describe things the way I want to, it takes too long. You basically need your own platform.
Like Jim or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you think?
And then here's the joke. Here's a joke about the whole thing. The joke about the whole thing is you need concrete proof of certain things. And how are you going to have concrete proof when not everyone is like certain, like we're talking about PEDs, for example. You need concrete proof to this country in certain ways is a bit imbecilic, and that you need concrete proof to accuse somebody of taking PEDs. Yet these certain somebodies don't even do random drug tests for most of their fights or any of their fights. And so they've never failed a test. But what does that mean? What does that mean when you never failed a drug test, when you never took a random drug test in your life? You know what I mean? That means nothing to me. It means nothing at all. I have every right to accuse you if you start looking like Superman and you refuse random drug tests. I have every right to accuse you, but then suddenly I'm the one that risks getting sued. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's also the rules are a bit imbecilic here where we live in this country. And this country is great, but certain things, I mean, like this, like that, kind of put a muzzle on certain things you want to do.
Well, I mean, it's not even accused. I mean, you're not even accusing them. I mean, I think we've been criticized so much because we ask questions. We're not accusing you. We're asking a question. Why can't you answer the question? And
absolutely.
You're
Here's the thing, though, man. See that, and this is where my emotions get tied into this, and I would have to learn to be like you guys and just ask the questions. But unfortunately, I'm kind of a loose cannon in that I'll ask the question, and when you don't answer the question, especially when you don't give the answer that I was looking for, then I kind of spew out and start accusing and go crazy. You know what I'm saying? So I feel that I have to be careful, because for me, it's a process of elimination. It's very obvious. It's common sense here. I mean, if you look like Superman and you refuse random drug tests, then you were probably doing something. You know what I'm saying? In my opinion, you were doing something. Now, if suddenly you're doing random drug tests and you stop looking like Superman, then it makes it even more obvious that you were doing something. You know what I'm saying? So I'm not going to jump out at names again like I used to, but let's be pretty realistic here on what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? I've gotten into this in the past and gotten myself in trouble, or at least by some people's standards, gotten myself in trouble. But in reality, there should be random drug testing for every world-class fight. There's no excuse that there's not. There is no excuse that there's not. You know what I'm saying? There's absolutely no reason for anybody to be refusing it. There's no reason that it can't be paid for because of the certain level that we're on, and the kind of money that's in these kind of fights. It should be easily affordable. So there's really no reason for any of this. There should be no reason for any of this controversy anymore. We should be past this already, but we're not.
I agree.
How do you? I 100% agree. And it's interesting. Like you talk about the test thing, and people say, "Well, I don't want to take the test." And that's kind of how I got on this journey 4 years ago. Was I just started with Floyd and said, "Why now?" He got really emotional and upset, and I literally just kept saying, "But why at this moment after 20 years of fighting?"
You know why? I'll tell you why Floyd got upset. Floyd got upset because he's getting called out on wanting random drug tests, when the other guy should have been taking them the whole time to begin with. So he can't say, because of the country we're in, he can't outright say the other guy is on so much steroids that it's coming out of his ears and it's coming out of his nose and it's coming out of everywhere. So I need to start this random drug testing for everyone. That way he gets the hint that if he's going to fight me, he also needs to random drug test. But Floyd can't say that because Floyd is, he's going to risk getting sued. He's going to risk pending him in a lawsuit. So that's the frustration of answering that kind of question. So you got to kind of read between the lines here. Everyone should be taking drug tests. I'll give you an example, okay, guys. I'm a big soccer fan. I'm probably a bigger soccer fan than I am a boxing fan, okay? In 1994, I don't know how much soccer you guys know, but in 1994, the United States hosted the World Cup, okay? There was a goal scored by Diego Maradona. Diego Maradona might be the best soccer player ever. It's probably between Pele and Diego Maradona, okay? And Diego Maradona scored a goal. I remember the game was Argentina versus Greece, and he had this wild celebration where he got right in the TV camera's face and kind of went crazy and went nuts. And the FIFA officials, FIFA is basically the world organization for soccer, looked at him and said, you know what, this guy's kind of going bananas here on the field, you know? You know what they did at the end of the game? The game ended and they said, Diego, come here, buddy. Why don't you pee in this cup for us? We're going to draw some blood. We're going to test you right now. Diego Maradona might be the best soccer player in the history of soccer. He didn't have the right to say, hey, man, what are you guys, crazy? I'm playing again in 3 days. I'm giving you guys no blood. Or, hey, man, I'm focusing on a soccer game here. I'm not taking no drugs. Since when does the athlete have the right to decipher when he's tested or not? You know what I'm saying? Like, when did this happen? The most popular sport, possibly, in my opinion, he is the best player to ever play the most popular sport in the world, and he did not have a say. He didn't have a say to not take that drug test. And you know what? Diego Maradona failed that drug test, and Diego Maradona was kicked out of the 1994 World Cup. Okay? That's the moral. The moral of the story is nobody's too big to say yes or no. You know what? This excuse, that excuse for not taking these random drug tests. Okay? If you're avoiding them to that degree, and there's a big problem because everyone, at this point, everyone, even other major sports are starting to do this now. You're starting to catch random guys, random drug tests. You know what's happened in baseball once they started talking about it? Guys who are hitting 40, 45, 50 home runs at the All-Star break now, suddenly their numbers are going down. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all back to normal now.
We had 61 was the record. 61 was the record for the season. You had 5-6 guys a year getting over 60 home runs. Oh, are we kidding me? I mean, it wasn't obvious.
Right.
So now suddenly, look at it like this. Look at it again from the accomplishments today. Again, I mean, take the same thing. I mean, if it's too good to be true, it probably is.
Right.
It actually is.
The ages are getting longer. Fighters are fighting, I don't want to name names, but getting close to their 50s.
Exactly.
And here's the thing.
They should take this course, man. I mean, it's kind of the ages are getting longer, and guys are starting to stick around longer. And, obviously, again, like I said, there's so much going on. Everybody's random drug tests. It's pretty simple. It's pretty simple.
When I say random,
there's so in these big fights.
Year round.
There's millions of these big
not like random is not. I'm going to fight, and we're going to test during training camp when I decide that we're going to fight. It should be year round. So this is my problem with Floyd Mayweather testing with USADA, is that he's in control of the window. He's ordering it. Whereas I look at like Edwin Rodriguez and Donaire, they enter into a voluntary year-round program. They have no control. They've submitted themselves to something greater than themselves. To me, that's true random testing, and that's what they do in the Olympics. You're year-round. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. And I was like that when I was an amateur, actually. It was when I was one-time international. The guys can show.
Here's my thing about Floyd, and I'd like to hear your opinion about this, Paulie, is that, okay, the whole, drug testing issue, TMT is now a promotional group. How many of his fighters have tested positive? Why hasn't he talked about it? Why hasn't anybody asked him about his fighters? Where's his stance at, in my opinion? I mean, I want to know. Where is your stance about this? You were so for it. Your fighters got caught.
Well, here's the thing. Here's the thing, and you got a great point.
Right.
You got a great point, and I can't even argue that point. But here's the thing. Testing positive for a diuretic and testing positive for a steroid are two very different things. I'm going to explain it to you. Testing positive for a diuretic is hazardous to the fighter who was taking the diuretic. He's killing himself to make weight. The diuretics are banned not because of what the damage the fighter can do to somebody else. What the damage the fighter can do to himself, making weight.
It's a masking agent. They're also used as masking agents because they dilute the drug.
Okay, yeah, I didn't know that. Yeah, you're right. You're actually right. I had heard that. Yeah, there's masking agents that are diuretics too. Okay. So
they have a dual use.
Yeah,
so
there are some that are masking agents. You're absolutely right. I hadn't thought of that. Okay, yeah.
So and the thing is, Dave, also, Floyd was asked by Tom Hauser back, I think this is before the Canelo fight began on the first tour back in D.C. About the test. And his response and Ellerby's response was that we're taking care of it in-house. We're now going to get all of our fighters in a year-round random drug testing program. That hasn't happened.
Right.
So those are things on the table. I'm sorry to interrupt your question, but just points of order.
Well, like what you were talking about, Paulie, about the whole soccer thing, and that player gets tested, he gets kicked out of the sport. I've had a few, listeners that email me, and they'll say boxing is like the Wild West, and my reply to that is no, it's not, because in the Wild West, what we used to do is execute or hang our cheaters. We only suspend them in boxing.
Yeah, that's true. But the thing about it is this. I mean, the thing about it is this. people want to, we can point our fingers at a lot of places, but honestly, the progress is going to come slow, guys. I mean, I hate to say it, maybe one day when maybe we'll be here or we'll not be here, then there'll be random drug testing across the board. I don't think it's that difficult. I really don't. I've talked about it before. As a matter of fact, I talked about it before most people were talking about it, And, you kind of, people kind of look at it as a joke or something that is an excuse or whatnot, And I'm not, I think guys like Floyd, guys like Pacquiao should step to the forefront, and possibly do it all year round, or at least, take certain efforts to preach that, because if I'm saying it once, it's one thing if guys like that are saying it, but I don't think it's going to happen for a little while now. We can at least start though. It can at least start with every fighter doing it during the training camp. That at least that's progress. Because right now we don't even have that. So that's progress. At least start it with every fighter during the training camp gets randomly tested each and every world-class training camp. And what I'm saying by a world-class training camp is fights where money is. Obviously unfortunately you can't control the 4-round fighter that's not randomly drug testing them because the test costs more what they're making.
Right.
But world-class level, there's plenty of money to be put into a random drug test as well, and I think for starters, we go there, and then from there, you can, kind of mutate it to the all year round. It's progress has to come slow, but it comes, but I don't know.
We're further along than we were, At first it was Floyd and his fight. Now you got Bradley. We are further along.
We are further along than we were, but what is it? Manny Pacquiao. When did he start VADA testing? Last fight.
Last fight. Yeah.
Oh, that was the first time he did it, right? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean,
so the next fight.
A lot of conspiracy theories could come out of him doing it the last fight. I mean, honestly. I mean, could it be that? How come all of a sudden now he was, after all these years and he actually stalled negotiations for a major fight, that he was okay doing it now, And
good question.
And I'll answer another one. I mean, he did it. Where was the firepower? Where was the because he fought like a human being. What I'm saying about fought like a human being is he didn't fight like he was superhuman in the Brandon Rios fight. What I'm saying is you used to see Manny Pacquiao throwing 8 to 10 punch combinations and then coming out, stepping out of the pocket and stepping right back in and following up with another 5, 6, 7 punch combination, backing you up and following up with yet another 5, 6 punch combination. And what I'm saying is that takes a lot of stamina. Because throwing speed takes a lot of stamina. Throwing hard punches, which he was also doing, takes a lot of stamina. So usually you're going to do that and you're going to get out of the pocket, catch your breath. You may even initiate a clinch to kind of catch your breath. You're in good shape, so you need maybe one clinch and suddenly your oxygen is back. I mean, that's all of us. He did that in the Brandon Rios fight. Never saw it before, though. I didn't see Manny Pacquiao clinch for 5 years. That's what I wanted him drug tested. I don't care about right now, man. You know what I'm saying? I don't care about. I mean, I do care about right now, obviously, but I wanted to see it when it was really important. I wanted to see it when the featherweight came up to welterweight and knocked out welterweights that were actually monster welterweights. That's when I wanted to see it. That's when I wanted to see it.
Yeah.
And
I can understand that. And it's hard.
I took Miguel Cotto's punches. Okay, I took Miguel Cotto's punches. Okay, I consider myself to have a pretty good chin. Okay, I consider myself. I think at this point my reputation speaks for itself. I'm a pretty good receiver. I can take a punch, and I'm pretty my toughness is pretty well known. Okay, I took Miguel Cotto's punches. Okay, that's the hardest puncher I've fought. I have how many fights do I have? 38 professional fights. That's the hardest puncher by far that I fought in my 38 professional fights. Okay. He doesn't have to say Manny Pacquiao gets the benefit of the doubt. He has the best chin in the world. He doesn't get knocked out. You don't have to get knocked out by the hardest puncher in the world. This guy's Miguel Cotto didn't knock out, including me. Okay?
Right.
But taking the kind of thunder Pacquiao took, there was a war in the first 6 rounds. Taking the kind of thunder Pacquiao took from the guy should have slowed him down. It should have slowed him down, in my opinion. It should have slowed him down. I mean, I was a natural 140-pounder fighting a natural 140-pounder in Cotto. Slowed me down, taking that kind of shot. Didn't slow Pacquiao down. He didn't fight Cotto like Floyd fought Cotto, where it's like, oh man, you got to fight a guy like that. He hits so hard. You got to fight a guy like that pretty intelligently. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
When you fight a guy like that recklessly and you break through punches like that, I don't know, man. You know what I'm saying? You start. I don't know. And again, it's hard to explain because then again, you're going to say,
there was a phrase that they used to use.
Is in the first. And you guys there?
Yeah, we're here. Go ahead.
It's hard to explain because you're going to say, oh, Margarito's walking through his punches in the first fight. Well, Margarito, first of all, is naturally a bigger guy than Cotto, number one. Number two,
Right.
Margarito did it in a your way kind of way. Margarito did it in a tough it out kind of way, not in a I'm still fresh as a daisy. I'm wiping off your punches like they're spit, and I'm throwing 100-mile-an-hour combinations still like nothing ever touched me. Margarito kind of gritted his teeth and kind of walked him down and broke him down in the first fight. And of course, Margarito probably was cheating as well, as far as having the things in his hands, But it was a different kind of breaking him down, So, again, these are just suspicions, but at the end of the day, you would have liked for them to be addressed right there. You would have liked for it to be nipped in the bud right away, back when it was happening. Maybe you'd avoid all these issues now, These things should have been brought up then instead of being laughed at when people brought them up then. And then maybe 5 years down the line, which we are at now, you may be a lot further along. I think people are crying about the fact that Marquez and Pacquiao, how did Marquez pass all those drug tests? How did Marquez pass that drug test with Pacquiao? He was so dirty. I mean, he looked like another human being at 40 years old. He did. You guys don't agree? He did. I mean, that was another guy who should have been in the league.
Well, then,
he
had in his corner with already a guy with a pass.
Like a different guy. He did. He looked.
Right.
He did. He looked like a different guy. But let me ask you a question. If you're Juan Manuel Marquez, and you've been drinking your own piss, and you look very small against the Floyd Mayweather fight, you're clearly not a welterweight. But you fought this guy, Pacquiao, tooth and nail at smaller weight classes, and now you're fighting him at welterweight, and you're just supposed to believe that he's just grown better into the welterweight division than you can?
No.
And you're going to fight him again? You know you were super competitive with him, but now you're going to fight him again. Let me ask you this. If you go into it clean and you're Marquez, you don't think you're risking your life? And,
no,
I'm not saying what Marquez did is clean is right. I'm not saying it's right, okay? But in the moment, do you fight a guy you know is dirty? Do you go in there and fight him clean and risk your life? You know he's not going to get caught. But then again, you hire this guy who may be able to get you stuff that you don't know, where you don't think you can get caught. Do you even the stakes, or do you walk away from a $5-6 million payday and say, you know what, forget about it? You gotta walk your one more. And I'm not saying anything is right or wrong. I'm not saying what's right or wrong here. I'm trying to make people walk in the people's footsteps, okay? And that right there in the Marquez Pacquiao fight, one thing stood out to me blatantly. Big time stood out to me in that fight where Marquez knocked out Pacquiao. Everybody was talking about only Marquez. Everybody was only talking about Marquez and, oh, man, he was so dirty. And they said, oh, how did he pass that drug test? He was so dirty. Did anybody else notice that Pacquiao was winning the fight? Did you guys notice Pacquiao was winning the fight?
Right. No, we missed that. Right.
How is the clean guy beating the dirty guy? Is he clean? Exactly. There's so many layers to this.
Right.
It's hard to solve overnight. There's so many layers to this. Solve overnight.
There's a couple phrases, and you hit on a couple things. When you study, I like to study other sports, particularly other dirty sports. Cycling is a favorite of mine, and there's a use or lose mentality that they talk about, that guys start out clean, they get to the top level. You read Tyler Hamilton's Secret Race. He was totally clean, didn't even use like ibuprofen, nothing. And then he got to the top level and realized, man, it ain't enough. I'm the best in the world clean, but I'm like 50. And that's when you begin to use. But there was a phrase that they used to use in reference to a drug called EPO, which is a blood doping drug. It creates more red blood cells. And they would refer to guys as machines. It makes you feel like a machine because you'd never get tired and you keep going. And looking back at the old things about Pacquiao, they would always say he's like a machine. He never gets tired. It always made me wonder.
That was absolutely what I was thinking was the case there. I mean, at that time, I'm like, there's no way. And when I did my research, I said, this is it. This is the drug right here. You don't get randomly drug tested. You can't catch this drug. You can't detect this drug. So you're not going to tell me never failing a drug test means anything. When this kind of drug right here, unless you take random drug tests with blood, you can't detect it anyway. You know what I'm saying? So never failing a drug test to me stopped meaning anything once I started understanding these kind of things. You know what I'm saying? And it was like, wow. And these guys started
two different types of PCO tests.
So it's scary because this is combat, guys. This is combat. This is combat sports. It's scary, dude. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's why it's got to be long. It's got to be moved along in the right way. Somebody shouldn't have to die for these things to take effect. It's unfortunately, when do really things like this take into effect? When people start dying, when people start getting hurt. The NFL started changing their rules and people started getting all kinds of damage later on in their lives. Now, all of a sudden, the last couple of years, the NFL became a totally different league. Okay? It shouldn't come to these kind of things. It shouldn't come to these kind of things for people to understand and really get on it. Okay? That's kind of the evilness of society. You know what I mean? Because in reality, when guys are asking for random tests, for other guys, I see the comments on the internet. Guys, I read the media stuff now because I'm a reporter myself, you know, so I got to kind of get caught up on things. I read up on things that I used to refuse to read because as a fighter, I don't want my head cluttered with stuff. So I read articles. I read comments people leave. Guys, I mean, people get hammered for asking for random drug tests. Fans and people look at it like it's an excuse to get out of a fight. You know,
right.
It's crazy.
Oh, yeah.
It's crazy. Donito Donaire takes random drug tests every year. You know, I remember, what fight was it? Well, I Merchant asked him, should he move up in weight? And Donito had just moved up in weight. He's like, let's get settled at this weight class first. Because when you're clean, it's not that easy to just keep moving up in weight. Moving up in weight is very difficult to do. You know, when you're clean, you have to have the frame for it. You have to have the frame for it. You know, Nito does have the frame for it. So he can move up maybe more weight classes than certain other people can move up. Tommy Hearns, he had the frame for it. Maybe he could fill out better than other guys because he was very tall. You know, I give the guys like that benefit of the doubt. Alexis Arguello had the frame for it. But at a certain point, the common denominator with all those guys was they got knocked out at a certain point. Unless if they didn't touch up their defense, all those guys got knocked out. If they tried to keep fighting as aggressively in the higher weight classes, and they did, they got knocked out, all of them. Okay, so again, I go back to what I used to say. When Manny was jumping up all these weight classes, he didn't have the frame for it. I used to call him a midget because he's very short. He didn't have the frame for it to fill out all these weight classes. How's he filling out all these weight classes? And also not paying the price for fighting this aggressively and getting hit from bigger guys. Not just bigger guys, bigger punchers. So it just leaves you really wondering. And you don't want to start putting guys out there, you know, and you don't want to start pointing the finger, but although sometimes you kind of have to. But at the end of the day, how do you solve it? Random drug testing for every big fight. Starting with random drug testing for every big fight, and then from there, maybe it'll evolve to all year round. You know, you start somewhere. You got to crawl before you can walk.
Exactly.
Right now, we're barely getting up on all fours to crawl.
Or even
so let me ask you now.
Test. Like the fight where Pacquiao got knocked out by Marquez, there was no random drug testing. It was just standard testing by Nevada. And they could test for EPO, but they don't. And EPO is a urine test. I believe there's also a blood version of it. But
be random, right? I mean,
they could
correct me if I'm wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong, but the test for EPO in the urine test, don't you have to have caught the urine at a certain time? I mean, if you took the last you won't detect it in the urine. So it's still
the night of the fight. If you get caught that night, like Victor Conte and other guys, anti-doping say you're an idiot.
Exactly.
You failed the drug test.
The guys that are getting caught on the night of the fight are the amateurs. You know, these are the guys that hadn't or thought they could get away with something and are totally rank amateurs. You know what I'm saying? These are the guys that are getting caught the night of the fight. You know what I'm saying?
The night of the fight, what they could do is measure the hematocrit, which is like the red blood cell count.
Yeah, that's what they started doing in blood. So they started doing with bicycles. Yep. Oh yeah, of course.
Right.
You have to have the willingness, and you have to be willing to put up the money, and you have to have the desire to catch these people. You know, you got guys. Boxing is a big business. Winning is a big business. You know, once fighters are a big reputation, you know, they become so much money that nobody wants to risk damaging the reputation, and that's the shame of it. I mean, that's the shame of it. So, does it mean anything? In the long run, in the long run, I mean, safety should come first. But unfortunately, you know, not everybody's getting in the ring to care for safety. You know what I'm saying?
And you're feeling our frustration as reporters too, Paulie. You know, and I'm glad that you mentioned that. You're saying, you know, you have to now kind of look at all these things as a reporter. So let me ask you this: is now that you feel this is a responsibility to try to out this out or ask the questions, what is your stance now, or what do you think is the title for Al Heyman?
What do I think is the top what?
What do you think Al Heyman's title is in boxing now? Is it manager,
title,
advisor?
You know, I'd say it's advisor / manager. I mean, as far as exactly what he is, I mean, I was able to keep my manager along on board, you know. So when I signed with Al, so I wouldn't say he's my manager. Al's my advisor, and he advises on certain things probably better than certain other people can. But really, in reality, boxing is about connections, it's about networking. Unfortunately, in life, it's about connections and about being associated with the people that can get you to a better place, to a higher level in the business you're in. So for me, signing with Al Heyman was because Al could do things for me that other people couldn't. You know, and especially in a sport like boxing, where you say like, oh, well, in other businesses, maybe you don't have to make certain kind of decisions like that because in the long run you might get there anyway. In boxing, it's not like that. I'm at the end of my career, so if I want to reach a certain pinnacle, namely, if I want to get the Floyd Mayweather fight, if I can keep looking impressive in my wins, I can only get it if I'm associated with certain people. And, you know, Al kind of worked his way through that because Al kind of came into boxing just like everybody else came into boxing, but he moved his way up the ladder a lot faster. I don't know how, but all I know is Al Heyman fighters get paid more money and they get bigger fights. And when the opportunity was offered, I got to take it.
Right, and definitely when you signed on to him, and you keep talking about, you know, I was promised a big fight. That was the first thing that I mentioned was the big fight is the Floyd Mayweather fight. I mean, because that pond of welterweights or any fighters that in that sweepstake is getting thinner and thinner and thinner. Let me ask you this, and I'll let Gabriel jump back in because I know he's got a million questions too as well. When we talk about cleaning the sport, though, and I know you're in that position as a fighter, you got to take certain things in order to get to certain places. But when we talk about cleaning up the sport, the Ali Act is being continuously broken. It's just everybody bends the rules and everybody, you know, violates this Ali Act. That should also be thrown into cleaning up the act, not just with PEDs. The Ali Act should be thrown there as well and rewritten and really be forced as well. Do you agree?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. The Ali Act should be thrown in, but again, who's going to police that? Who's going to police that? That's where the fighters are kind of. A lot of the fighters are
screwed.
Not, I wouldn't say screwed, but also it's a deficiency in power. You know what I'm saying? Once you're outside the ring,
yeah.
A lot of fighters don't have the money. A lot of fighters don't have the money promoters have. Say you don't get your Ali Act, or your numbers don't make sense on your Ali Act, for example. You want to fight it. How do you fight it? You got to get a lawyer. You got to file something. Yeah. Most fighters don't have that kind of money. You know what I mean? Promoters do. Promoters will fight you all the way through. Not only that, they'll freeze your contract so you can't keep working. Because if you keep working, you're going to be able to pay the lawyers to fight them. So it's an ongoing vicious cycle, you know, where the fighters don't really have a lot of pull, a lot of power in any of this.
Well, it's a discouragement too. I mean, I'm doing a series called The Boxing Blitz, and this is one of the issues that I talk about. Among a bunch of issues that we have in the sport of boxing, is that with the Ali Act, it's this discouragement for fighters that they got nowhere to go or to speak to get advice. They got to get a lawyer, and that takes money. You know, so it always ends up where the fighter just shrugs his shoulders and says, well, screw it. It is what it is. You know, I'm just going to keep, tussling along and try to, survive and pay, my ends meet for my family. And I think that's where we need to take notice. And I think more people need to talk about not just the PEDs, which we do all the time. Every show we pound at it, but the Ali Act,
You're 100% right. Here's the problem. Okay, the problem is when things like that are happening, the fighter is not talking about them publicly. If he's saying, you know what, let me keep fighting and let me just take this on the chin because or else, I can't feed my family, I can't keep making money. When that's happening, you guys don't know about it because if the media would find out, if the fighter talked, that means he's not just taking it on the chin and then continuing his career. He's actually fighting against his promoter by going public with certain things. So that's the problem. When these things are happening, nobody knows it, and take it from me. We know how to hide it well if and when those things are happening. Because
even not even that. So, Paulie, there's fighters that do talk. There's fighters that do talk to certain media, but media won't talk about it because they're afraid of getting those credentials pulled off. You know what I mean?
Nah, I'll tell you that's the media perspective of it, and you know what? You might be right on that end. I got even better for you. Okay? This fighter that we'll talk about it, the media's friends with the promoter. Okay, that's There's fighters that won't talk about it with the media, because the media is friends with the promoter, and the media guy will run like a little girl back to the promoter, because the promoters wine and dine these media guys. The promoters are friends with these media guys. They know who to keep close to them, so that, you know, when there's problems like this, you know, they'll report back to them. Okay, a lot of times the fight will not tell the media guy, because the media guy will run back to the promoter.
Yeah, I wouldn't disagree with that. Do you think, in a sense, because the sport is fractured, and I've always said that the powers that be in boxing love it this way, that it's not a universal league, and like with the drug testing, but also the media, do you think like some of the publicists and the promoters like that there's a lot of dummies in the media and complicit fanboys, guys that aren't going to press? I mean, I haven't exactly won a lot of friends on press row because of the fact that I keep hammering the annoying questions, not like, who are you going to fight next, or how was training camp, but like, hey, did you get your Ali Act thing handled, or who did random drug testing for this? That everybody kind of rolls their eyes and goes, there's Montoya on his soapbox again. But really, those are the important questions. Do you think that the publicists and the promoters like it this way?
The promoter, yeah, absolutely. The promoters like it this way, of course. Less controversy, the better for them, you know. You know, this is a side of boxing that people try not to talk about, but a lot of times needs to be discussed. You'd like for it to kind of be a bit more out in the open, but at the end of the day, you really just kind of go with it, because as an athlete, you only have a certain window to make money, so you want to maximize your window to make money, you know, and you want to maximize your opportunities as best you can, you know, especially, you know, when you're not always in a great position to get those big money fights at all. You know, you don't want to minimize it even more, you know. You gotta just kind of truck along and try to hopefully, you know, maximize what you can, you know. And so it's difficult. You're walking a tightrope constantly. I mean, it's a very, very stressing thing to do, is fight for a living, and especially when you need the money and when you're not, you know, well off. You know, I can remember times earlier in my career where I'd just be so frustrated because, you know, I needed to take what was coming at me and not be able to complain about it, because, you know, I couldn't afford to not keep trucking along, you know. And you know, it was it's very frustrating, you know. And I'm sure more fighters are in that position than not. I know more fighters are in that position than not. And you know, it's things where it's so much that has to be fixed. It's a spider web. It's kind of intertwined into so many things that, where do you start, you know? And, you know, you like to start, but is it really about starting, or does it become a vigilante thing about, you know, making a personal agendas? Because you have to try to correct the sport. You can't make it a vigilante thing about personal agendas, you know what I'm saying? Or else then you get lost in what you're doing, you know? Then what the true identity of what you're trying to do gets lost if you make it a vigilante situation and going after personal agendas, you know? So it's so tough. It's so tough. But at the same time, yeah, does everyone just want the problems not to be addressed and everything to continue? Yeah, that's always easier for the powers that be. So the powers that be are the powers that be for a reason, because things are this way. So of course they're not going to want things changed.
I couldn't agree more on both of those fronts. It's hard, you know. This 4 years I've written, I think, I'm up to like 51 articles on PEDs, and they've been, you know, some of them educational, some of them have been controversial, but outing people, and it's tough. There have been times where you can't see the forest for the trees, but I think the number one thing, you know, because this all has a theme, is that we as media have to band together and be consistent, keep asking the tougher questions, keep raising the bar, and keep educating people. And so I think when we set that example, all the other guys will kind of fall away, because there's not a lot of reward in this business, monetarily. On the media side, on the fighting side, it's all hard to get a little bit of, you know, not for these squirrels here, but, you know, we just got to keep doing it. And I appreciate you being so open and honest, man, and just speaking your mind, because it's very rare.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And like I said, I mean, for starters, it's the main names in the sport, you know, to lead in random drug testing. I think you'll see a lot less of what you've seen in the past 10 years. Just like you saw the home run number drop in the Major League Baseball, you'll see if everyone gets randomly drug tested, when eventually it does happen, because I think eventually we'll move on to that. You know, just the progress comes slow, but it comes. Then when every major fight gets randomly drug tested, you will start seeing guys not fighting as older into their age. You'll start seeing guys not going up so many weight classes and things of that nature. So, you know, I think that's the things to look for. And once we reach that point of everybody being randomly drug tested, those are the things to look for. And that's when you're in law. There was more people than you thought that were doing things, you know?
Oh, yeah.
I agree.
Oh, yeah.
And so, you know, like I said, in baseball it became very obvious. Guys can barely hit 50 home runs anymore, you know? So it's, you know, the numbers don't lie. That's all.
Right. Yeah. Time to clean it up. It's time to clean it up, man. And all I gotta say is you just keep being you, Paulie. You know, and you know, like myself and Gabriel, you know, who's been writing those articles, and I've been pounding at this for 4 to 5 years now about cleaning up our sport. It's refreshing to know that there's a guy out there, and I think you've influenced other people that are commentators to come forward and start talking about these situations in our sport, this problem in our sport. You know, from Jim Lampley to Brian, your co-commentator there, who's talking about it on his radio show. So you just keep being you, man, and I think it's a slow infection that we're doing to other people out there, other writers and other people that want to come forward and speak about this. But I think at the long run, even though it's going to be a long and slow process, which it has been 5 years, 4 years, I think we're starting to see signs of some type of light, I guess you could say, right?
Yeah. I mean, we've seen some progress. Like I said, it's slow, but it's coming, and that's what you kind of got to root for, you know. And I hope that it continues to go in that direction. And I think it will. It's just it's got to be a marathon, not a sprint, unfortunately.
Well, you're the man, brother. Again, dude, thank you for coming through and speaking to us, and you know, we'll keep tuning in and listening to you do your commentary, and then wait for that next big fight that's gonna hopefully fall on your lap there.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it, guys. Thanks for the time. Bye-bye.
Okay,
have a great day.
Paulie Malignagggi here on Leaving the Ring Radio. A lot of stuff, man. I hope everybody enjoyed what we got. We were able to provide today. Brandon Rios coming through, talking about Yorkis Gamboa, but more importantly, his drug fail test with Vada, what happened in China, the name of the energy drink, finally, we got that, and among a lot of other things. And Paul Malignagggi, sticking true to what he's been pounding the table about cleaning up our sport. I think this is very important for the real fans out there. You know, I see guys just like Paul. I surf the net, and I'll look through Twitter, and I'll look at certain other people talking about things, and I'll see guys go like, you know, I want to do a radio show because I want to save the sport, because they want to call out about certain matches not being made, when that's not saving the sport, really. What's saving the sport is trying to clean up the sport. And I think when we clean up the sport, we're going to be able to see better fights as well. You know, I had a good time. I had a good time today.
I mean,
I think we're 5 more minutes left, but, you know, 5 more